You've entered the Temple of the Ancient Owls. I live here sometimes. It is a long-forgotten temple that only recently I have rediscovered. Heyo, welcome to a Neosvr showcase video. This is for the Ocean Outreach Temple world that I've been working on off and on for quite a while now, since basically January. You start to lose track how long you spent working on a world when you spent a lot of time just hanging out in it. So it's like, oh well, maybe I have like almost 100 hours working on this place, but in reality it's more like I have almost 100 hours spending time in this place, possibly more. I don't know, honestly. I don't know how long I've actually spent in this location. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this world because it's one that I've spent a lot of time on. It's probably easily my favorite world I've made, or at least one of them. It's pretty close to one of my favorites. It's my home world as well, which means I load into it when I boot up this game. So it's kind of like the one I see every time I play Neos, even if only for a minute. Anyways, so yeah, my design philosophy was to create sort of a world where you could explore it, even if, you know, it's explorable, and it incentivizes you to explore, by rewarding you with power-ups. There is a power-up that if you climb the top up to the top of the tower, if you make the treacherous climb, you pull yourself up to the top, and you claim the sun as your reward, which is in this nice Chozo statue, which, by the way, was made by Giru, this specific one. I don't know the name of the artist who created the other Chozo statue that's in the temple, but I kind of cooked that into the lore of the temple, which is another sort of major aspect of the temple, which is I have written a bunch of lore about the ancient owl people. And the ancient owls, while I've kind of, because of my avatar, I've kind of incorporated my own self as a part of the lore, but not like a major part. I'm the one who's alive now, sort of finding this temple, and I'm a descendant of the owls. Woo, it's just very lore-y and interesting, and woo. But if you look around the temple, you'll find lore all over the place that talks about that and explores it in a conceptual way, and it's sort of like notes of mine that I've left about, sort of speculating on the lore and sort of discussing it, essentially. And I've hid them in some very, very clever places, so you really got to think outside the box. Now, the thought process is the player will climb the tower, acquire the power-up of flight from the statue, which essentially allows you to no-clip through anything. So location is a suggestion, after all, and at least here in Neos, when you have this ability, so that means you can go anywhere and do anything. And much like my previous world that I showed off in a video, I wanted to also take advantage of scale as an element of level design or world design for this place. And so I made where I'm sitting now, which is at the top of the tower in this mini podcast zone. The mini podcast zone is basically where you go if you want to record a podcast, or just, because all those podcasts that I make. That's sarcasm, by the way. I don't actually make any podcasts, so you might be wondering, like, well, why did you put a podcast zone in your world? Well, I just thought, well, if another Neos user wants a podcast zone and they want it to be kind of a unique spot that has a kind of its own isolated vibe from the rest of this world, which is kind of a big reason why I went for it, which is, it's like why we're scaled down to the mini podcast zone, is that when you're sitting here in the mini podcast zone, you can see this nice view of essentially the sunset on the ocean. But there's more than just looking for lore, which is pretty much everywhere in the world. There's maybe a few areas that I need to still add some more lore to, for essentially rewarding the player for actually looking in those areas. But that's sort of me admitting the world isn't 100% finished, but I feel like that's also a curse with Neos worlds, where they're never 100% finished in their entirety, because you can always just come back and add more, and so you kind of fall into a bit of a, I don't want to say a trap, but it's kind of like, it's just something where you don't really intend to not finish it, but like you end up not finishing it because you're just like, well, I can easily change that later or whatever. And it's one of those things where you just sort of take for granted the fact that you can just create on the spot. But anyways, that's not about the world, so let's get back to that. So yeah, I got the mini podcast zone here at the top of the tower, which is kind of like the chill zone. I've watched many YouTube videos with friends and stuff up here. It's kind of a nice little spot to just hang out in general. Kind of when you're done looking around, you come up here, you can sit on this big comfy chair here, and yeah, you got yourself a cool little mini podcast zone. Also, you have sort of the lower section and a statue of Samus, which was graciously gifted to me. Also, I gotta say that it wasn't all me who created every little thing about this world. Shoutouts to the Neosvr team, like the community, for just generally being super supportive and helpful. There's a button that you can press here atop the tower that, if you do press it, it will minimize you to mini podcast proportions, so that you can hang out in the mini podcast zone. And it's, you got to enter the zone. You got to get in the zone. It's a different zone. It's not the rest of the world, which is normal sized. It's the mini podcast zone. It's like a whole other place, but it's not at the same time. So it's cool. Or at least that was my idea for it. And that was made by a friend of mine in here named Jenna or Gianna. I wish I knew. They've never corrected my pronunciations that I've done, so I don't know. So shout outs to them. They created 2 buttons in this world, actually. They created this one, and there's another cool button that if you go up to it, it lets you control the sky. It's pretty cool. You can click on it, and it will change the entire sky. I don't have it right here in front of me, otherwise I would just click it real quick and the whole sky would change, but you see the footage. You can see it on screen, so it's fine. And so yeah, this world kind of has a sentimental value to me now, and that's kind of unique for Neos worlds so far for me, where it's like I kind of see this one as it was kind of the world that really got me into world building and just generally playing Neos on a regular basis. I know I kind of said that about my last one, but this was the real deal. You know what I mean? Like, that one was kind of the gateway. This one's like the pathway in. Like, now you're in. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's that, and there's also sort of this little undercroft area where you can just kind of chill out as well in case mini podcast zone ain't your vibe and you want to have a more sleepy vibe. It's kind of a area that's like a lounge that is sort of implied I created that lounge, not like the ancients that used to live in the temple, but yeah, that's just sort of lore aside. There's also the sort of newest addition to the place, which is the library. Very helpful friend of mine named Chi, who worked on the library's cool sort of glass effect that lets it change colors and stuff. Very cool. Also, I wanted to mention the sun power-up that lets you fly around and stuff. That was made by Shifty, so thank you to him as well. Lots of support on this world that I very much appreciated, and still do appreciate, of course. That went into making it what it is now. So it wasn't all just me, but the construction and layout and where I hide all the lore and the lore itself, and most of the content is something I created for the most part. But it's not without the help of the community, which is something that is really unique to Neos as a concept. So, anyways, So yeah, you got the really cool Chozo statue, which is, one of them is just straight up, again, from Metroid Prime, the game. Looks so sick. It came in a T-pose, so I kind of made a joke about it being the Chozo used to assert dominance by T-posing. It's a silly, silly joke, but I kind of, it works. It works. Also, a user named Bobotron is the one who created these cool little particle effects on its hands and stuff. They just kind of, and I think the eyes as well, but I'm not sure about that one. I think I might have did the eyes. It's been a long time since that change was made, so I don't remember for sure. But yeah, it's supposed to be a sort of temple floating on a sort of ocean, or maybe above an ocean. It's not really supposed to be on the ocean, but floating high in the sky above the ocean. So yeah, if you watch my previous Neosvr showcase thing I did, it's a video that kind of builds up to finding this place, but it's that one was pretty way unfinished compared to this one, which is mostly finished. The only unfinished part is that library, which again is in that box. It's a pretty unfinished place, but it does still, I think, effectively communicate the library vibe as it is now. So I thought it was still worth showing off to you. And generally, this place does kind of have some labyrinthy sort of zones, especially if you are, phasing through the walls and stuff and looking around that way. There's generally some areas that you wouldn't expect, and I'm expecting there's lore hidden that you wouldn't be able to find if you didn't really truly check every nook and cranny. I've hid them at different sizes, so you got to make sure you play with your scale function, so that's a thing. And I'm trying to think of what else there is to say about this cool world that I made and had help making too. Very, very cool times spent here. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really think so. If I do miss anything, I'm gonna regret it, but hey, what can you do? It's a YouTube video. I appreciate you joining me for this cool showcase of the temple. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think of the temple. If you play Neos and you want to check out the temple, it is publicly available. Feel free to check it out. Let me know if you think you found all the lore, and yeah, I'll see you later. Peace out.